Hello and welcome. In this video series, I'm sharing what the Hermetic principles mean and how to apply them to your life. So today we're on to principle number 4, I believe, which is all about the principle of rhythm. So in this video, I'm going to be teaching you about what the principle of rhythm is, what it means, and how to apply it to your life. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Gabby, and here at Be the Hero Academy, we're here to help you be the hero of your story. And so the Kybalion and Hermetic philosophy is an amazing way to support your journey to your best life, to be the hero of your story, to be the creator, not the victim, by incorporating this spiritual wisdom and integrating it into your own psyche so that you can integrate with your shadows, alchemize your shadows, and transmute your energy into the highest vibration you can possibly be so you can attract the things that you want to have into your life. I know that's a big goal, but we help you do that here on our channel through all the videos that we publish all about your childhood programming, spiritual wisdom like this, and other helpful mindset tips and strategies. So as we dive into this video, little bit of background. If you haven't watched my first video in this playlist, I highly recommend you go back and watch it, because in that video I explained to you what the Kybalion is in the first place, what the Hermetic principles are in the first place, and what the background is so that you understand these principles going forward. One thing that you have to understand from the get-go is that the Kybalion is rooted in the philosopher's teachings, the philosopher known as Hermes Trismegistus. These are the teachings of Hermes Trismegistus, and many say that all religions were born out of these teachings from a long time ago. Now, Hermes was said to exist in so far back that nobody really can even say what time period he lived in. But that's all of the details of that. You can find more in my original video. For now, the important thing to understand is that the Kybalion is the collection of some of his students, known as the 3 initiates. They brought together his teachings into one simplistic way to help people interpret the wisdom of the Hermetic principles. Now, the 3 initiates gathered together the 7 Hermetic principles, which many now consider the universal laws of reality, even though they are rooted back before we gave it the scientific label of universal laws of reality. They were very much more occult and esoteric wisdom known as the Hermetic principles. They're exactly the same. And so today we are on to the principle number 4, known as principle of rhythm. Now, all of the principles in general are very much open to interpretation. Now, I wouldn't even say necessarily open to interpretation, but rather must be interpreted. The whole point of the Kybalion is that you require a level of personal filter to be able to understand these concepts. And the reason for that is because it allows these extremely powerful laws of the universe to not be used for negative intent. That is why, in general, the Kybalion is generally kept to, it's kept secret, kept sealed. The word Hermetic literally means sealed, because the thing with the Kybalion is that if everyone could understand it, which most people can't, if everyone could understand it, everyone would have all the ability to manifest whatever they want. And so you listening to this video right now is amazing, because you listening with your own wisdom, you will have the power to be able to interpret it and use it to create great things in your life. Of course, you always have to keep an eye on the negative intents, but at the same time, because of the way that you must use your own personal deduction to be able to interpret it, helps create a natural filter for using the power for good and not evil. And so my favorite quote, one of my favorite quotes in the Kybalion, is the simple quote that they introduced the book with, which is that when the ears of the student are ready to hear, then cometh the lips to fill them with wisdom. And so the fact that you're here listening means that you're ready for it. So let's dive into what the principle of rhythm is all about. Okay, so principle of rhythm. Everything flows out and in. Everything has its tides. All things rise and fall. The pendulum swing manifests in everything. The measure of the swing to the right is the measure of the swing to the left. Rhythm compensates. In a way, the principle of rhythm is thus far the easiest one to understand. Now, it's easy to understand only because all of the principles build on top of one another. That's why it's important for you to go watch this whole playlist if you haven't already. You need to listen to principle of polarity that comes before this, because principle of polarity and principle of rhythm are so similar and just so closely interlinked that they kind of just naturally make sense together. If you listen to the principle of polarity, you understand that for everything in the world has to have this duality of polar opposites, polarity. In order for good to exist in the world, there must be an evil. Otherwise good would not exist. If we want love to exist in the world, there also must be hate, and so on and so forth. Well, from that space, we've already created this idea that there has to be this high point and this low point, the poles between which reality is created. And through polarity creates the Maya, the illusion. The illusion that we live in is only existent. We can only see reality in this illusion because oppositions exist. And now that we know that, we get to move on to the law of rhythm. So now that we know that everything is dual, everything is always in motion, everything is also always cyclical. Now, rhythm and cyclical, law of cycles is another way that some people in non-esoteric words describe the law of rhythm. And it's because rhythm is cycles. Cycles is rhythm. They're the same thing. In some ways, my initial impression of the easiest way to interpret the law of polarity's evolution into the law of rhythm is the difference between you have summer and you have winter. And how do you get from summer to winter? There has to be a cycle in order to get there. You don't just overnight transform from summer into winter. That's not how the way reality works. Reality functions on law of rhythm. There has to be a fall. The summer falls into the winter. The winter springs into summer. These are the cycles of nature that create the rhythms of life. Of course, the simplistic way to think about the obvious way to think about the law of rhythm is the tides. There's a high tide and there's a low tide, and everything has to flow from rise to fall. So going back to the book here, one of the important quotes that is shared in the Three Initiates Kybalion is just this one sentence kind of summarizes it all. This law is manifest in the creation and destruction of worlds, in the rise and fall of nations, in the life of all things, and finally in the mental states of man. So each of those things could be broken down. However, this isn't about the rise and fall of nations. This isn't a video about the creation and destruction of worlds. My real goal is to help you use this as an applicable tool to help you transmute your own shadows, alchemize your own darkness, and help you live in your higher vibration and your own personal reality and manifest the things you want. So the two more important things, or really the one most important thing that I want to touch on is the mention of the rising and falling of the mental states of man. Of course, they also mentioned the life of all things, which could definitely bring up a dialogue around, so we have the cycles, right? Because rhythm is also cycles, and we go through birth, development into adulthood, and then adulthood lasts, like, it's not exactly even in a human lifespan, but then you have the decline, and then you have the winter of old age, and then you fall into death, and then brings up the question, though, of do you spring again, and how do you spring again? These are like questions of, like, obviously you have to, because death is not something that, with the all that is, was, never could be. The universe, the all doesn't say, this is the three-dimensional plane and only right here, and then it ends, and then you die and then it ends. This is so much more deeply interlinked into a multi-dimensional reality and multiple levels of energetic frequency bands that we cannot perceive with our five senses. So obviously, when you die, there's the most logical answer to that, based on the Kybalion's laws of reality, based on the principles, the Hermetic principles, is that when you arrive at death, it's only another winter. It's only another point of hitting a pole, and you will once again rise into a new tide, into a new rising, into possibly an afterlife, possibly a different reality, possibly a reincarnation on the earth again. Who knows? That's an open discussion that people could have in the comments down below. Let me know what you think on that one, because that one could go deep, and it's hard to say. Like, obviously religions wouldn't exist if people didn't have different opinions on what it could be and didn't have a way to prove it, because that's the way the all is. It is all interlinked, and we are trying to grab onto some level of understanding for the complexity of this field of existence, and that's all it really is for us. One field of existence in a massive, massive span, massive universe of multiple fields of existence. So the part that I really want to get into, and that's most important, is the mental states of man that are rising and sinking, advancing, retreating, rising, and falling. So real quick, I want to intro this section with the fabulous quote from Batman, which is the saying that where Batman's dad tells him, why do we fall? So we can learn to pick ourselves up. Okay? So this is kind of the whole idea of why we have to go through this rhythmic flow of hitting those poles. The poles exist, and now we have to move through them. We have to move through our cycles. I really love the cycles of human nature because I don't know if I told you this. So this is also very highly linked to the correspondence, the law of correspondence. And of course, it's also linked to the other principles as well. But I shared with you in the principle of correspondence how much I realized I had to go deeper into myself in order to expand outwards. And though it's not about the depths in which you go, there's an equal and opposite reaction in a way when you move through the rhythmic cycles. You can't avoid winter. Yes, you can live in San Diego, you can go live in the Bahamas, whatever. You can't avoid your own winter in life. No place doesn't go through its own version of winter. No thing doesn't go through its own version of a falling before it can rise again. Why does this exist? Why would such a law of reality have to exist? I think, like, from a literal standpoint, I remember the first time I went through my depression. I went through a hard shadow period of my life, a dark night of the soul, simultaneously with the first time in my life I experienced a really bad winter. I was up in northern Montana, and everything outside in the world, it was cold and gloomy all the time. There was nothing to do. It was just the silence and solitude. We were on a ranch, but it was like very desolate and isolated from society. And it was like there wasn't really anything to do. Regardless, it was the epitome of winter. You'd walk outside and there'd just see this sheet of white, and it's just everything. It's beautiful, but at the same time, everything feels like it's dying, which is what winter represents. And at the same time, a part of myself was dying, experiencing those two cycles at the same time. The cycles of the seasons had synced up with my cycle and my hero's journey, which leads me into the hero's journey. Here at Be the Hero Academy, I believe that you're here to be the hero of your story. And the only way to become the hero of your story, aside from all the mindfulness and deconstructing your childhood programming and deconstructing the program you were given, aside from that, the only way you can become the hero of your story is by zooming out and having metacognition, the ability to observe yourself from afar, to realize that you have this grandiose story that has already begun. You may be at chapter 1 of a 12 series book, or you could be at chapter 10. You could be at the end of just you might be on book 3 at the end of the book, but you have 5 more books ahead of you. Regardless, you're going through micro and macro heroes' journeys on a constant basis. Okay, so if you accept that, now the hard part that people struggle with is looking at themselves to see where they are. Looking at yourself to realize what phase you're at. The simple way to apply the law of cycles, the law of rhythm, the principle of rhythm to your life is to recognize where obstacles are opportunities. Because the thing is, it's not really hard for us with the law of rhythm to rise from spring to summer. Summer's great. We love summer. Summer is all the happy things. It's when we're riding a high on life. We got that raise. We just, we have our relationship we love. We're doing great. I have my friends. I just moved to this new place. I got this new job. We're vibing high. Those are easy. That's not where people struggle to be the hero of their story. They struggle to be the hero of their story because when they are in those shadows, those darkness, when they're falling into winter, they sit in winter and don't use it as an opportunity to learn something. So just like that Batman quote, we fall so that we can learn to pick ourselves up. If you go into your winter, which I respectively understand that a lot of people, I myself have gone through this, struggle with anxiety and stress and depression and hopelessness and feeling stuck. And it's not that you're doing anything wrong by feeling that way. It's that you have to feel that way. Embrace it. It's okay. It's okay to be in your winter. It's okay to be on the other polarity. But now how are you going to make your next season, your next loop, your next high tide to low tide swing? How are you going to make your next cycle upwards better than the last one? If you're totally fulfilled in your life, then you don't have to. But I think most people want more in life. They want to feel more valued in their work. They want to have more connection in their relationships. They want to have more sense of fulfillment in their day-to-day life. And so when you do that, to get there, being the hero of your story is realizing that your story of how you arrived here right now gives you the key to knowing what to do next. If there was this audio of Joe Rogan saying it was probably on Joe Rogan podcast, but it was circulating as an audio on Instagram, and I'd used it a while back as a reel, and I just rediscovered it, and it's like literally, it's so simple. If there was a documentary crew following you around, filming your success story, your future success story, what would you do next? What would you do? That's how you become the hero of your story. Now, it's a slight tangent, but really it's very, very highly linked to this principle of rhythm. Principle of rhythm is about embracing that you are moving constantly. You can't hold on to anything too tight. Don't be so obsessed. This is my happiness. Oh my God, I'm scared to let it go, because then you become obsessed with dopamine because you're so scared of losing that happiness. And then as you fall into winter, all of the other external dopamine stimulus that you've picked up to help you avoid having to embrace the winter is now actually, when you obsess over dopamine, it actually perpetuates your own depression, helplessness, stress from just a psychological level. It stimulates your fight or flight response and all things like that. And so that actually just makes your winter worse instead of embracing these cycles. So have you ever noticed how, like, when you're going through those happy periods, that no matter how great you feel, like you'll get to these points, you're like, oh my gosh, it's so great. I finally found my happiness. I finally got that thing I always wanted. This is so great. I love my life, living my best life. Have you ever gotten to that point and you feel like this time I'm not gonna have a crap, or like my life has changed for good now? But then no matter what, somehow, despite the fact that it feels like you've changed for good, your high periods are always followed by a downfall. And that downfall looks different for everyone. If you're not having a downfall, that's a good symptom of that you're resisting the laws of reality, and things are probably not going to work out for you. Probably feels like your whole life is pushing a boulder uphill because you're resisting even this law of the universe. If you are accepting it and in a natural flow with the universe and this principle, then you'll have that high. You're like, oh, it didn't change for good. Then you have this hopelessness. You're like, I'm depressed. I'm so anxious. I feel like I don't know who I am. I don't know what to do. I don't know what I want. And let me tell you, I did not realize how strongly this was going to play out in my personal growth journey. I knew during my first Dark Night of the Soul winter that if I went deeper, I knew I would expand outward. Well, so then what started happening is, like, the first one I was like, okay, my life sucks, kind of. And I was like, okay, go dark, go inward. And then I'm going to expand outward. Well, then the next time around, I'm like, oh, cool, this is a high. Then I had a low again, and then I had a high again. And I thought on the second high of, like, enjoying and finding this, and when I say high, it's not like you're, like, high on life of just, like, everything's great. You actually do up level. You actually do get the things you want. And these things happen, and they're good things that you've been striving to manifest in your life. And so then that happened, and I was on my second manifestation thing happening, and I thought, okay, cool, I did it. I'm not going to have... And I started noticing that what was crazy is that the past year for me, I say over and over to my close friends in my life and my family, like, it's crazy. The happier I get, the harder the lows are for me. And maybe it's like a false memory. Maybe it's a false memory. But this really goes to show not only the principle of rhythm, but also the principle of polarity, that there's always an equal opposite. That the higher I get, now this is a little bit touching on what the next video is going to be about, which I believe is the principle of cause and effect. Let's really get us into this more. But it's still all so closely tied, and I didn't realize that as I got happier, I would still swing back into the low tides. So this leads into what I really want you to take away from this video. Of course, I touched on being the hero of your story, recognizing where you are in the cycles, the rhythms of the grand scheme of your life. If you called this year if you followed this year, and you don't have to link your year to the seasons of life, but if you had to put a season for life for this last year, where would you be in it? Are you on your winter? Or are you on your summer, even though we're going into winter? In the last 5 years of your life, what have been the low points? What have been the hurdles? Did you overcome them, and are you reaping the benefits? Or are you on the opposite end of it? Did you reap the benefits of something a couple months or years ago, and now you're starting from scratch again on something new? Whatever it is, that's how you start to analyze where you are on your hero's journeys, on your micro hero's journey. So in addition to that, I want you guys to take away these things. So the big key to embracing the Hermetic principle of rhythm, is that you need to use it and not be used by it. Yes, we want to embrace and not deny. If you deny these cycles of life, you will feel like life is a constant struggle. So in order to use it, there's three key things I want to cover. So the first thing is to neutralize the pendulum. Now, so you know how moments ago I was just saying how I would go to these highs, like, great, this is great, I was everything I ever wanted to manifest in my life, and then it would get harder, life would get harder. And I'd go through lows where it would feel almost more soul crushing than depression. It's weird. It was, anyway, and I would go through these swings. I was like, whoa. I can't handle this. Even though the highs are great, these lows, I don't want this. This is not the person I want to be. And so you have to neutralize the pendulum by, there's a word I'm looking for. Whatever it is. By stopping the swing from going to extremes. Neutralizing yourself means having self-care practices. And self-care practices applies not just to a freaking bubble bath, okay? Neutralizing yourself with self-care means having things like journaling as a practice to mitigate how deeply you go into your hopelessness, depression, whatever. Mitigate was the word I was looking for. Mitigate how low you go into your low. When you journal, a lot of times it helps you just process it, and then you processed it and cleared it and you move up. I don't think the goal is not necessarily to neutralize your fulfillments on the high side. However, sometimes the high side is instigated by, simple like excessive alcohol, excessive sugar, excessive socializing, excessive dopamine, where you're constantly having affirmation, validation, success, amazingness, those kinds of things that aren't necessarily helping you fulfill a deeper sense of satisfaction in your life. So mitigating, when you're at that high point and feeling a lot of love, saying no to things before you get burnt out and overstimulated with dopamine. I think of, I have a friend like this, who she's like super extroverted and kind of has like swings a lot, and she'll get so happy that she'll say yes, social, and then she'll see someone every day, and then she's like trying to like do all of these fun activities, and then she's also like, indulging and enjoying life, which is great, but also like that burns you out, and now you're gonna swing lower. So we're mitigating by managing the things that you really want to say yes to, and detoxifying emotionally the things you need to before they get pent up and explode, and now you're curling in on yourself in a literal metaphysical way as you curl up on the couch and curl up into bed in depression. Anyway, so neutralizing your pendulum is the first way to work to use the law of rhythm to your advantage, and this is going to help you to actually experience a deeper level of midline. Instead of swinging from here to here, your midline day-to-day life is actually going to become more content, more fulfilling, more purposeful, and it'll give you the space in your life, the space and energy to be able to work on the things you'd really like to be working on. Okay, so next, the second one is to raise your frequency. This one cannot be understated because it is the most important part. If you go through your whole life staying at the same frequency, you live a repetitious cycles of the universe, cycle of winter, spring, summer, fall. You repeat it if you stay in the same vibration. If you raise your vibration, your cycles become spirals, upwards, not downwards. That's how you become the hero of your story. That's how you be the hero of your story, because every time you return on the cycle of winter, spring, summer, fall, you are entering a new cycle, something new, the next level of your happiness. Another and similar analogy is that if we're swinging like this And we're trying to not be like this, so we're trying to make it from here to here. We're trying to neutralize our pendulum. I guess we could use it this way too. If we're trying to neutralize our pendulum, if we're going from here to here, we're trying to go from here, here, here to here. If we raise our vibration, even though we're neutralized, our resting happiness becomes higher. So that midline that we're crossing between, the lows and the highs, those start to become a higher vibrational existence, a higher consciousness. To raise your vibration, you have to raise your consciousness. And this is not an easy task, okay? It's easy. Maybe some personalities, read the book, The Map of Consciousness, highly recommended book by Dr. David Hawkins. And there's a scale for the map of consciousness. There is a point of empowerment, and everything below the point of empowerment tends to make you feel like you're either stuck in a cycle of repeating the same cycle or spiraling downward. Until you get to the point of empowerment, confidence, you will always feel stuck in your life. To change your consciousness, you have to change your thoughts though. And to change your thoughts, you have to change your programming. Your programming is just the belief system that was inputted into you in childhood that became the most dominant thought feeling pattern in your life. Your programming is complex, so when I say thought feeling pattern, I mean there's multiple thought feeling patterns. It's literally neural pathways in your brain that get fired and wired more often than any others, and they become automatic and unconscious. This ends up dictating your consciousness. If you were given bad programming, and of course no one's bad, but you were given bad tools. Your parents told you safety and security isn't the most important thing. Don't do that, don't do this, you're not capable, you have to be more. All of these things that we are told in childhood become automatic and unconscious states that make us live in fear, scarcity, that we need to do more to be more. Pride not in a good way, not I'm proud of myself, but like pride, I need to prove myself. And these things end up keeping us stuck. They keep us stuck in winters and summers that repeat themselves time after time and after time. To be the hero of your story, you have to raise it. You have to change your consciousness by changing your programming. And that's what we're here to help you do at Be the Hero Academy. Be the Hero Academy, we're here to help you reprogram your mind so that you can overcome anxiety, stress, overwhelm, feeling stuck, so you can manifest your exact version of your best life that you want to achieve, because it's absolutely possible. If you want us to help you with that, you can join us in our VIP Academy. Our VIP Academy is actually free to join, and we teach you how to identify your unique personality programming. It's totally free. You can check out the link down below. All you have to do is apply to join the VIP Academy, and you can join us in this space where we're giving you exactly what you need to do, or giving you the tools that you need to rewire that personality programming that makes you feel stuck in that winter, spring, summer, fall over and over and over again. Now, the last third point that I want to cover on the principle of rhythm, is you have to be willing to face the pain. I think a lot of people struggle with this. A lot of people distract themselves not because they want entertainment, but because they'd rather have distraction than have to face their own humanness. Being human is uncomfortable. Being human is painful. Emotions are painful. Nobody would deny the fact. No one on their spiritual journey or personal development journey will tell you that it's easy. No one. Everyone will say, yeah, it's hard. Dealing with your humanness, though, is what makes you human. Because on the high side of it, you get to experience the amazing human sensations of joy, love, happiness. All of these things come from being human, but being human's hard sometimes. I think a lot of people are unwilling to change their consciousness, unable to change their programming, actually more because they're unwilling to face their pain. They're unwilling to look back at their story and use their story as an indicator into what they should do next. To be that hero, to be that person in the movie that goes, oh, that's what oh my gosh, he did that, she did that. To do that, you have to look into your pain. And so my last thing I want to leave you with is to urge you it's okay to face your pain. You can do it. You're strong enough. It is going to be hard, but it will be worth it, because when you do that, when you face your pain, you are allowing the laws of the universe to truly support you in life. You are literally opening your heart to the principle of rhythm, to the laws of reality, to the all that is, was, and ever could be, to God. You're allowing God in, and you're saying, I'm ready to embrace the natural flow of life by accepting that it is going to be hard and I can do hard things. I can face my own pain. And if from that you will be rewarded with the law of rhythm, swinging you higher, of course with a neutralized swing, into the most fulfilling life that you really want to have. So I hope that covered, that was my best attempt at covering everything about the principle of rhythm. If there's something important I missed that you interpreted when you looked at the principle of rhythm, let me know in the comments below. I will be covering the next video, is about the principle of cause and effect very soon. For those of you who have been waiting on this video to come out for a very long time, I apologize. My personal programming kicked in, and I was so worried about making this video as good as the last video that I literally had analysis paralysis, and I was overwhelmed with other projects. Analysis paralysis for, I don't know, it's been like 6 months, so I'm sorry. That was really messed up of me. Hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will come to you very soon with the final 2 videos. Namaste.